They are elegant, regal, glamorous. They wear priceless jewels, entertain in lavish style, and they live in grand palaces, fantasy worlds rendered in precious gold, marble and bronze. But their lives are more than just glittering wealth and royal protocol. For as we take an intimate look into their world, we discover a surprisingly close-knit family, with very human characteristics and challenges. There is King Carl, shy, generous. His Queen Sylvia, stunning and sophisticated. And their children Victoria, Philip, and Madeleine. They are wealthy, glamorous, and in so many ways just like us. They are the Bernadotte's royal family of Sweden. For over 1,000 years, the Scandinavian kingdom of Sweden has graced the shores of the Baltic Sea. It is a land of incredible beauty and sophistication. This is especially true in the capital of Stockholm, where nearly a quarter of all Swedes live. Delicately positioned on a cluster of 14 tiny islands, the city is a celebration of both ancient and modern Sweden. Grand boulevards give way to twisting medieval streets, and the romantic harbour is never far away. And at the centre of it all is the Royal Palace, one of the largest in the world with nearly 1,000 rooms. Once this was the site of a Viking fortress, strategically placed to keep track of all the ships entering or leaving Stockholm. In the late 17th century, the site became the king's residence. Europe's finest builders and artisans took 5 decades to complete the construction. Artists brought in from France painstakingly created the elaborate murals and ceiling paintings. The kings and queens who lived here assembled an extraordinary collection of European decorative art to fill the massive palace. But how could people live in these enormous formal rooms?
The simple answer, they couldn't, and they shouldn't. You have those important interiors, both in size and quality and so on, and you have small and intimate rooms besides, where you have a chance to make something more personal.
Today, the palace is the official home of Sweden's Bernadotte dynasty. While the Swedish monarchy dates back over 1,000 years, the Bernadottes have only been in power since 1818. At the time, the last heir to the Swedish throne had died off, so the government simply elected a new king. The man they chose was Jean-Baptiste Bernadotte, a French marshal in Napoleon's army. He accepted the job, moved to Sweden, and as simple as that, the Bernadotte dynasty came into existence, and it has thrived for nearly 2 centuries. Today, King Carl Gustaf rules over this kingdom of 9 million people. He is a gentle king with a renowned sense of humor. His presence is surprisingly warm and easygoing. But to most Swedes, he is a man who has earned their affection and respect, with a life that has seen as much adversity as it has privilege.
Fantasy, myths, ancient beginnings. Elevate your historical exploration to unparalleled heights with a History Hits subscription. Don't miss out on our latest releases, where classicist Natalie Haynes travels to Corfu to unravel the story of the Gorgon Medusa, one of the most iconic yet misconstrued figures of Greek mythology. Join Jasmine Elmer as she dives into something that people have been obsessed with throughout history: dragons. Where did they come from? What exactly is a dragon? Finally, Dan Snow explores the ancient history of the Isles of Scilly and discovers burial grounds built thousands of years ago. Discover hundreds of hours of award-winning documentaries and ad-free podcasts with History Hit. Sign up for a special offer via the link in the description.
Lai's first challenge came when he was just a child. In 1947, when his father, Prince Gustaf Adolf, was killed in a plane crash. Little Carl Gustaf was just 8 months old. Despite this tragedy, Carl grew up a happy child. He was adored by his mother, Princess Sibylla, and 4 older sisters. Yet his greatest playmate would turn out to be his grandfather and eventual mentor, King Gustaf VI Adolf. As Carl grew older, life presented another hurdle. He was diagnosed with dyslexia. Determined not to let it defeat him, he studied hard and eventually overcame his disability, excelling in his studies at Uppsala University and becoming a Swedish naval officer. By the time his beloved grandfather died in 1973, Carl Gustaf, who was just 27 years old, was well prepared to ascend the throne. And he did so on September 15, 1973. But it wasn't just royal affairs the king excelled at. He also excelled at affairs of the heart. In his 20s, the king was quite the ladies' man. That is, until one beautiful lady stole his heart. It happened in 1972 at the Munich Olympic Games when the prince met a young interpreter named Sylvia Summerlath. The king has said that the moment he saw her, he heard the click of romance. It was love at first sight. And who can blame him? Sylvia was stunning and capable, born of a German father and Brazilian mother.
Queen Sylvia is well organized, as the Germans are, but with a wonderful temperament, as the Brazilians have. And the Queen manages to get people she meets to relax.
The king did more than relax. He proposed. The wedding was set for June 19, 1976. The night before, the king, his future queen, and hundreds of guests attended a musical celebration in Stockholm's 217-year-old opera house. The concert featured everything from classical musicians to the rock group ABBA. Later that evening, the guests headed to the king's magnificent estate in Drottningholm for a private ball. Despite the late-night celebrations, Sylvia was radiant the next morning on the most joyous day of her life. She wore a simple silk gown designed by Christian Dior. Most striking was the impressive train, a royal heirloom dating from the middle of the 19th century. The magnificent train was worn by former Swedish queens on their wedding days. Sylvia also wore one of the exquisite tiaras that have become a trademark of her style. The tiara with its 7 cameos is not only exquisite, it has an incredible story.
This cameo tiara was made in Paris in the beginning of the 19th century, and it was ordered by the French Emperor Napoleon I, and was given to his first wife, Empress Josephine. And then it was inherited by her granddaughter, that was named Josephine after grandmother. And this Josephine, the second one, became Queen of Sweden.
The newlyweds moved into the royal residence in Stockholm. Then in the summer of 1977, the royal couple welcomed a new member to their family, Princess Victoria. She was followed 2 years later by a brother, Prince Carl Philip, and in 1982 by a sister, Madeleine. From the beginning, the king and queen were committed to spending private time with their family. At Christmas, they would gather together in the kitchen to bake ginger cookies and saffron banners, and they made sure to take regular family vacations.
All of them, the whole family is very much into outdoor living. They like boating and, going away with their yacht in the summer. They like going skiing in the Swedish mountains in wintertime.
Today, they continue to travel together, usually taking off the middle of June through the end of August to travel. But of course, family vacations aside, the king and queen are hard-working monarchs. They appear at several hundred events every year, at home and on the road. Hard at work in Stockholm, the royal palace is their official workplace. The king drives to work every day from the family compound, just outside of Stockholm. On Tuesday mornings, he and the queen meet with their palace staff to go over the week ahead. The palace itself is like a working museum. On staff is a silversmith who keeps the heirlooms perfect. A window washer whose 14,000 windows keep him busy year-round. And even a clock winder who every Thursday winds all the clocks in the palace. The king and queen personally supervise everything from the royal collections to the planning of state visits by foreign dignitaries. And every December, the Swedish royal household is thrust onto the world stage for the Nobel Prize festivities. They host a party in honor of the recipients. As guests arrive at City Hall for the award ceremony, preparations for the next night's banquet are already underway at the palace. For an event this grand, only the Carl XI Gallery Room will do. Modeled after the famous Hall of Mirrors at the French Palace in Versailles, it is every bit as grand, especially in its festive finery. Places are set for 131 guests. The silver is selected from a stock of over 10,000 silverware sets the palace keeps in storage. Monogrammed table napkins are folded like a Swedish form of origami atop damask tablecloth. And silver serving dishes, fine crystal and china have all been brought from the royal storehouses. Many of these pieces are well over 100 years old. The king's place setting in the middle of the table is laid in the traditional style. A separate cloth is placed under the royal place settings, a tradition to denote their royal status. Their napkin is folded into a crown shape, a design reserved only for the royal family. And the king gets his own silver egg cup. It's a tradition handed down by the early French Bernadottes. Suspicious of Swedish cooking, they would always have a hard-boiled egg by their dish. That way, they didn't go hungry if the meal wasn't to their liking. The menu for the Nobel dinner has been carefully selected.
We are serving reindeer, main course from the king's hunting areas. And we're gonna have a fish soup with shellfish, different shellfishes in. And then we have a sorbet, the dessert, with Swedish berries.
Everything is perfect, and the palace opens its doors to the distinguished guests. They are whisked into the White Sea Salon. Then the king and the queen make their entrance. The queen, as always, looks disarmingly beautiful.
I think that the queen's style is very royal. She dresses the way people want her to dress. And she's always very elegant. And when it comes to the ball gowns, I think that nothing compares with our queen.
Who designs her ball gowns is a well-guarded secret, although it is Sylvia who selects the jewels to fit the gown. On this impressive evening, she's chosen a 200-year-old necklace from Russia, made of diamonds and 10 pink topaz gems. And topping off her ensemble, a beautiful gem tiara once owned by the king's mother, and first worn by the Queen more than 20 years ago at the gala ball held the night before her wedding. The King and Queen make sure to greet each guest personally. For the men and women invited here tonight, they will live a few shining hours out of a dream in a faraway castle as guests of a king and queen. It will be a night they will never forget. It is a place that seems to have been plucked from the pages of a children's fairy tale. On a small island, hidden by a snow-covered forest, in the center of a manicured garden, is a sumptuous palace known as Drottningholm. This is home to Sweden's royal family. Its construction began in the early 1600s. Its design inspired by the Palace of Versailles. And within the great walls is a place of true wonder. It is here where Europe's finest artists and craftsmen created a masterpiece of architecture and opulence in each of the palace's 170 rooms. It is to this enclave of royal grandeur that King Carl Gustaf and Queen Sylvia moved in 1981, as they pursued a privacy that Stockholm couldn't give them. And it was here that their children would grow up. But even in this retreat, the lives of the Gustafs would often come into the public eye. As King Gustaf has said, feeling truly private is a rare thing. In 1979, just 2 years before their move to Drottningholm, the law barring succession of a female to Sweden's throne had been overturned. That meant that the royal couple's oldest child, Victoria, was next in line to the throne. She was just 2 years old at the time, and along with this honor came enormous pressure and public exposure. As a protective father, the king was not pleased about the change.
I don't think he wanted the burden to be on his daughter, but he had to live with the law. So Victoria, who was just a baby, became the heiress apparent to the throne.
Nonetheless, the king and queen tried to raise Victoria and their other 2 children as normally as possible. For the most part, they participated in sports, attended local state schools, and spent time with friends they made along the way. Still, they are royal children, and as they grew older, each child had to find their own way to handle the public interest in their lives. Gentle, polite, and diplomatic, the prince developed a quiet public image. A skilled athlete, he also has an unbridled enthusiasm for fast cars, a passion he shares with his father.
His father bought a Ferrari this year, and the king and Carl Philip drove that Ferrari on Autobahn in Germany and in France.
Princess Madeleine prefers horses to Ferraris. After school, she often heads to the royal stables in downtown Stockholm, which shelters about 20 royal horses.
Princess Madeleine is a very ambitious and a very keen rider, and she comes here after school and she does her riding. The princess is extremely interested in jumping, and if you want to compete, you have to do this work every day.
As expected, Crown Princess Victoria bears the lion's share of the public's attention.
Princess Victoria is very appealing because she's so pretty, she's so young, and she's very fresh. She's very outdoorsy, she loves sports, she's very close to her father. They often go off and do a lot of sports together. So when people look at her, they see a very modern royal, someone that isn't sort of stuck behind a stuffy facade.
Victoria has a certain star quality. The camera loves her, so naturally the press does too. But this relationship has led to some problems. As Victoria entered her late teens, the media began following her every move.
These women live under such tremendous pressure and scrutiny that they just internalize all this emotion. She was criticized in the press for getting a bit chubby, and as a result, got very, very thin.
It was evident that she was not feeling quite well. And there were pictures of her. She was very slim, and there were speculations. And then the royal family decided that they would prefer if the court took the first step to acknowledge that the Crown Princess had eating disorders.
Restoring their beautiful daughter to good health became the top priority of the King and Queen. It was decided she would move to America and study at Yale. The change worked wonders for the young princess, and she began to gain weight. A year turned into 2, and Victoria seemed to be enjoying life a bit more anonymously in America. Still, there are responsibilities associated with being a crown princess. In October of 1998, the princess made a rare public appearance with her parents. They attended a ceremony at the United Nations in New York to unveil a bust of King XVI Gustaf's godfather and well-known UN peacekeeper, Bernadotte. Like mother, like daughter, the two radiated beauty and regal presence. As always, their sense of style was exquisite, from bottom to top.
I think that her hats have become more and more becoming. Now she wears big hats, and that suits her. That goes with her face.
Believe it or not, like ordinary women, the royals have their share of fashion pressure, only on a much grander scale.
To avoid mistakes, the chambermaid has a little book where she puts the date and what occasion and what the Queen has wear with accessories and everything like that, so she won't turn up at the same place in the same dress twice.
When she's not seen in dazzling designer wear, the Queen is just as likely to be sporting a store-bought outfit. She enjoys going to a department store to shop off the rack. But when all is said and done, this talk of personal style is more important to the public than it is to the Queen. She made that quite clear several years ago when a reporter asked about her hat.
Once, at a press conference, everyone was asking her, "Oh, what is this, Your Majesty, and who has done this," and so on. And then she said very openly that, "I wish that you could care much about what I had in my head instead of what I had on my head." Yes, that I think was cute. And then the king says that, "Why is no one ever asking me what I'm wearing?"
Whatever she wears, the Queen reflects a graciousness and poise befitting to her regal status. At the same time, she has been quite successful at trying to keep some aspects of her and her family's lives private, although the curiosity is always there.
I hope that the King and Queen and their children will give more of their private sides to the public, because I think the public would appreciate knowing what kind of people they are.
This endless fascination with royals will no doubt ensure that in the coming years, all eyes will be upon the Crown Princess Victoria. With her incredible beauty and charismatic smile, she seems the obvious successor to another princess idol. But unlike Diana, she can always find refuge in the warm, caring arms of a king and queen who believe that Being a family is far more important than being a member of royalty. Transportation provided by SAS Scandinavian Airlines. Wardrobe provided by Lord & Taylor. The King of Belgium has been called a blue-blooded Hell's Angel, a man with a passion for quick jokes and fast bikes. His bride has been voted Europe's most beautiful queen, a woman as comfortable with her subjects as she is with her own children. They are the charmingly casual King Albert and Queen Paola of Belgium. Their lives have been led in privilege and pageantry. Yet they put on no airs and stay refreshingly real. Today, with their 3 children, Philippe, Astrid, and Laurent, they are a thoroughly modern monarchy. With rich wit and timeless charm, regal splendor and disarming candour, they shine in the eyes of the Belgian people. They are the royal family of Belgium. With the highest living standard of any European country, and a history as diverse as its 4 borders, Belgium is one of Europe's most intriguing nations. Its culture and architecture are world-renowned. Its people are cosmopolitan yet friendly, enterprising yet relaxed. It is a country divided by language, Flemish in the north, French in the south, and German to the east. At the same time, it is a country united by a royal family who have proven themselves champions of all the people under their rule. King Albert II and his Queen Paola are open, accessible and warm with the people of Belgium. Crown Prince Philippe is the stoic, quiet one, next in line for the throne. Princess Astrid, striking and sophisticated, is known for her generosity of spirit. And Prince Laurent, the youngest child, is a true bon vivant, impetuous, charming, decidedly original. As they crisscross their homeland and the globe, embracing the people and their concerns, they exude grace and charm. And when they rule from home, they do it from one of the most incredible royal palaces in Europe. Overlooking a park that once served as royal hunting grounds, Belgium's Grand Royal Palace is a monument to the country's finest artisans and architects. The oldest wings date back to the 1700s, though later renovations and additions created the palace as it appears today. Until World War II, it was the king's residence. Now it serves as his office and the site for ceremonies and official greetings. Its many rooms are places alive with art and beauty. The long gallery can seat over 100. The guests unwind beneath inspiring 19th century ceiling paintings that represent dawn, day, and dusk. In the throne room itself, the great sculptor Rodin created much of the elaborate bas-relief work, and incredibly, during the First World War, the royal family insisted the room be used as a hospital. Indeed, the palace walls have seen much of Belgium's royal history unfold, and over time the great mirrors have reflected more than 200 years of moving drama and gripping tragedy. The king's own grandfather and namesake, Albert I, was the first Belgian monarch of this century to meet a tragic fate. He was vacationing in the Ardennes Mountains in 1934 when he was killed in a rock-climbing accident. Albert's leadership during World War I and his courage on the battlefield made him a hero to the Belgian people. His death was a national tragedy. The throne was left in the hands of his son Leopold, the current king's father. The people embraced the new king and his beautiful queen, Astrid. They would have 3 children, Josephine Charlotte, Baudouin, and the youngest Albert, named after the grandfather he would never know. For a short while in the years before the war, they led a happy, privileged life. Their mother, Queen Astrid, had an almost magical rapport with her people. But her life was ended too soon by tragedy. In 1935, she was killed in an auto accident. King Leopold, who was driving, survived, but was never the same. Belgians stopped still in the streets and wept at the news of the death of their Queen Astrid. Bells tolled, flags hung at half-mast. Thousands waited in line at the royal palace to view the coffin of their queen. Grief overwhelmed the nation.
So now you had 3 motherless children, you had a country on the verge of war, and you had a king who had to make some very difficult and what turned out to be some very unpopular decisions.
In the eyes of the Belgian people, the king's greatest mistake came during World War II. When the war struck Belgium, King Leopold seemed to surrender too easily to the Germans. Perhaps worse, he remarried during the war.
Many Belgians believed that the king should not be marrying during the war and having any happiness, that he was not sharing his country's pain.
After the war, the people's faith in their king was gone. Many even questioned whether Belgium's monarchy should continue. Knowing what had to be done, Leopold abdicated in 1951, leaving the throne to his eldest son, Baudouin. The new king was reserved and pious. With a childhood dream of becoming a priest, he took his role as sovereign very seriously. And the Belgian people soon came to love and respect the young king. At the same time, Baudouin's younger brother, Albert, was enjoying a life of less royal responsibility. He was a jovial, carefree young man who loved a good time. But on a 1958 trip to the Vatican, Albert would meet a woman who would stop him in his tracks, Donna Paola Ruffo de Calabria, a ravishing Italian beauty from an aristocratic family. At a time when the films of Fellini were the rage in Europe, and it was very in to be Italian, Paola, with her exotic beauty, was seen as Belgium's own La Dolce Vita. The people affectionately called her La Dolce Paola, Paola the Sweet. She was instantly adored by the Belgians.
Queen Paola was the Lady Diana of the 60s. She had real star quality, and when she came here, people were amazed, and they said, well, Albert did a good job. He chose the most beautiful princess out of a very old, ancient, aristocratic Italian family, whose roots go down even to Julius Caesar's wife. So she was beautiful, she had style, she had class, and everybody was very happy with this marriage.
She and Albert married just 1 year after they first met. As Albert enjoyed a honeymoon-like romance with Paola, his brother King Baudouin was still a bachelor. That is, until a friend told him about a young lady from the Spanish aristocracy. Her name was Fabiola. Baudouin went to Spain and immediately fell for her. It wasn't long before the couple married. In 1960, Fabiola became Belgium's first queen in a quarter century. Both brothers now had their brides. Albert and Paola soon had children, but Baudouin and Fabiola wouldn't be so lucky. They were unable to have children. It was a misfortune that they took in stride, publicly saying that it helped them to love all children equally. Fabiola and Baudouin reigned happily for 42 years. Then, in 1993, at the age of 62, Baudouin suffered a fatal heart attack. It was a common assumption that while Baudouin's brother Albert was technically next in line, he would step aside, passing the succession to his eldest son Philippe, who had since grown into a capable young man. But Albert II took his brother's place instead. Generation Next would have to wait its turn. While the Belgian people were surprised, they quickly embraced Albert and Paola. And Paola has never lost the charm that first won over the people.
Even in her 40s and her 50s, Queen Paola was elected several times the most elegant and the most beautiful queen of Europe by the readers of the French royalty magazine Point de Vue.
And like his savvy queen, Albert has held on to the vitality of his younger days.
Albert is a very genial man. He's very fond of jokes. He likes good food, he likes wine, he likes to laugh, he makes fun, he makes puns, and he's quite an eccentric because he's a motorcycling freak, and he has been called the blue-blooded Hell's Angel.
But today, the long-term future of the monarchy really rests in the hands of Albert and Paola's children. Their personalities, each strong and different, would soon change the face of Belgium's royalty as they came into their own in the public eye. For a monarchy built on unity, it's fitting that upon entering the palace, peace welcomes you. Peace in the form of the goddess Minerva, a colossal statue at the head of the grand staircase. And at Christmas time, peace also floats through the palace on the angelic voices of singing children as the Belgian royal family hosts their annual Christmas concert. Held in the palace's throne room, this annual tradition showcases a new choir every year, each selected from a different part of the kingdom. It is part of a national celebration where the doors of the palace open to the people. After the concert, the King and Queen meet and greet the general public as well as the dignitaries. It is clear that they are at once simple and lavish, sincere yet regal. They are the people's royals. And just as they welcome the people of Belgium into the palace, the royals are welcomed around the world by Belgians at home and abroad. Many public appearances are handled by the royal children, who now, even more than their parents, represent the casual charm of Belgium's royalty. The youngest, Prince Laurent, is by most accounts the least formal in the bunch.
Laurent is quite an eccentric guy, and everybody loves him. Of course, he has the easier part, because he will never be king, unless by some miracle.
Thanks to a change in the law of succession in 1991, he now stands a distant 7th in line for the throne, behind his brother, sister, and her 4 children, so there's little royal pressure on him. Laurent's unique, non-conformist personality allows him to sometimes stretch the boundaries of royalty further than ever before. But his madness often comes with a message. He is environmentally minded, and even a ride in this bicycle taxi is a public show to generate excitement about energy conservation. He is also the president of the Prince Laurent of Belgium Foundation for the Welfare of Domestic and Wild Animals. From the domestic to the international, the royals always show great concern. On a mission to Slovenia, Astrid visits the Belgian peacekeeping troops. It is an important royal effort of domestic diplomacy, and Astrid deftly handles the responsibility, her charm naturally putting people at ease. As her diplomatic and humanitarian efforts take her around the world, Princess Astrid is learning firsthand about the demands of royal life. She is, after all, second in line to her father's throne.
Princess Astrid is a young woman whose entire life has changed by a change into the Belgian constitution. Growing up, she had no dynastic rights at all. Women were barred from succeeding to the throne. And now she is second in line after her brother. And that has put a great deal of pressure on her, which she seems to have accepted.
As a devout Catholic, she uses her royal presence to support a national return to family values. Her own family is something she also takes very seriously. She is a loving and protective mother, keeping her children out of the spotlight as much as possible. While Astrid manages to balance between official duties and motherhood, her older brother Philippe, next in line for the throne, stays busy just balancing his regal responsibilities. Prince Philippe is no pretender to the throne. He was trained at the Royal Military School, and in the Belgian Air Force, he's risen to the rank of colonel. His diplomatic duties are extensive, but as he remains outwardly formal on many of his missions, his friendly and jovial personality can't help but come through.
What could be more typical to the culture of a country than its beer? This was expressed forcefully by Frank Zappa, who said, "You can't be a real country unless you have a beer and an airline. It helps if you have some kind of a football team, but at the very least, you need a beer." It's incredible what you can find on internet.
This man has quite an impressive academic record. He has been studying in Oxford. He has a master's degree of political science at Stanford University in the United States. He's a helicopter pilot. He's a colonel with the paratroopers. And he's carrying out all the duties that can be expected of him. So the only problem with Philippe is that he's still unmarried.
He may be a bachelor, but his rapport with children is endearingly natural, and his efforts and commitments always seem genuine. As the children of Albert and Paola come into their own, they are learning what their parents have known for years, that part of the responsibility of royalty is living the royal lifestyle, and that means looking one's best whatever the occasion. And shopping in royal style is just one of the perks of monarchy. In Belgium, suppliers of goods and services to the royal household apply for membership in the Fournisseurs de la Cour, an association of merchants who cater to the royal family. This esteemed group proudly serves the royal family. Their close contact also gives them invaluable insight to royal habits and style.
They buy things just like you and me, and they go shopping just like you and me as a married couple. They come unannounced, they just arrive.
Whether searching out delicious Belgian chocolates or putting themselves in the hands of a hairdresser, the royals attend Brussels' most exclusive establishments. Queen Paola and Princess Astrid have been coming to Maison Roger to have their hair done for years, nearly 40 years in the case of the Queen.
She is a woman who has evolved very well. She has stepped into the role of mother, now grandmother, and I find she plays a beautiful role as queen. And that's fantastic, because I've known her since she was princess. And as she's matured, I'd say she's done it perfectly.
Her hairdresser has known Astrid since she was a baby. Her personal style, he says, only brings her closer to the people.
She's really a very nice person, and very dear to us. I've known her since she was a baby, and I've watched her grow into a young woman, a bride, and now a mother of a family. She's a really wonderful person.
Occasionally, royal merchants will make house calls. Upon request, Leysen Jewelers sends representatives to the royal residence.
Once a year we go to show them our collection, precious stones and pearls, because our queen loves very much pearls. So she owns a nice collection of old pearls and new necklaces.
Belgium may be one of the world's youngest and smallest kingdoms, but its thoroughly modern monarchy offers a stirring example of royalty today. King Albert and his family are bereft of attitude and brimming with the common touch. They unify their country, they lift up their people, and they offer a better future for the world and all its royal families. Accommodations provided by Hotel Amigo, Brussels. Wardrobe provided by Lord & Taylor.